Welcome back to another episode of Rapid Results with Andrew Weiss. We have a very lovely guest today, Kerry-Ann Powell. And for those who don't know who this wonderful woman is, she has varied experience of over 20 years as a Washington, D.C. attorney, lobbyist, and fundraiser positions and fundraiser, as she's an authority of what it takes to strategically succeed while confronting difficult obstacles. After raising $120 million to build the Martin Luther King Memorial, she launched her strategic business and consulting firm, Trafalgar Strategies. She and her team advise business owners from various industries and countries on creating the strategies, systems, and mindsets to thrive in business and in life. She's committed to spreading the gospel that running a small and medium-sized business is vital and important to our economies, yet it doesn't have to feel like trying to manage a chaotic tornado. As business owners can run their businesses smoothly and feel confident that they will thrive, we have the wonderful Kerry-Ann. Thank you for joining us today.
Andrew, my man, thanks for having me on.
Yes. So the first question we want to ask is, what's the biggest and best business deal you are most proud of? And love to hear that.
Well, I've had some really great, fun, amazing things that have happened to me, particularly in my business at Trafalgar Strategies. But still, it remains the most rewarding thing that I've done was raising that $120 million to build the Martin Luther King Memorial. Every time I see someone post a picture on social media, it just makes my heart go pitter patter and leaps to joy. So that's what I would say.
And that's the memorial that everyone recognizes, huh?
Yes, in Washington, right there on the National Mall.
Wow, that's incredible. So
Yeah, have
let's
you been able to be there to visit
I
yet?
have, yes. No, it's I forget well, I don't forget. Yeah, so we went there for DC for my wife's Alicia. She had a show over there and we got
Mm-hmm.
to tour everything. And I remember riding by on my bike and going, "Oh, this is so cool!" And other people were there on their bikes too. And it's how big it is too.
It's
Is just
massive. It's 30 feet.
30 feet. Yeah. Oh
It's
my
30
gosh.
feet.
So the fact
Yeah.
that you were a part of that, and that's gonna be there probably forever and ever, hopefully. So that is
Yeah,
so
it really is
legendary.
something that I'm quite proud of. And I mean, I've got some really great shots. It just so happened when they were building it, so it's sort of built. Many people don't know this, but it's actually cut in different chunks. So it's built almost like a puzzle or something because it's just too big to move. Yeah. So when they were raising the arms, which is the part where his arms are sort of like, crossed, it's like the biggest part of the memorial. And just so happened I was touring a couple of prospective $1 million donors down there that day, and they were lifting it up that day. So I have these great photographs of myself standing right by the arm and standing, when they were raising it. It's such a great memory.
Oh, that is so awesome. And I'm sure for the audience tuning in, they're like, well, how the heck do I raise $120 million for anything ever? So
Yeah,
I'd love
yeah.
for you to take us back in the journey because obviously you didn't come out of the womb going, oh, I'm going to raise 120
Where is
million
it?
for MLK Memorial. How did this all come to be? Tell us about
Yeah,
that.
well, I cut my teeth right after of college. I was planning on going to med school, and I decided I didn't really want to do that. One, because well, I didn't do very well in physics. Hello, I don't know how those people do that thing. So anyway, but so I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do after college. After having spent all that time thinking I was going to become a doctor, so I said, okay, well, one of my good friends, she got a job working for the United Way, which is, I mean, for those of you who are maybe international audiences, it's a very large fundraising organization that helps great charities, but it basically helps folks who are working in corporate to be able to contribute through their payroll. Anyway, so one of my good friends was like, "Hey, I've got this job working at the United Way, and they're looking for someone to come in and do full time work, but only for half of the year during their campaign season." I said, "Okay, I'll do that." I went and
Yeah.
did that while I was trying to process, okay, what's my next step? And I was thinking about heading to graduate school afterwards. Well, anyway, I got the job, and I basically from there was able to become a division director, and which was a fundraising director, and I was the youngest one to be hired for that role.
Wow.
Anyway. I did that for for 3 years, and I just learned how to fundraise large amounts of money by, observing, by doing, by watching, by, So anyway, and after that, I went to law school, became a lobbyist, blah blah blah.
What was that first moment where you're like, what the heck? How did this person raise X amount of dollars just by doing X? Like, what was
You
that
know,
kind of moment
it's
for you?
interesting. It's just a skill, and people do this in their business as well. It's the capacity to be able to, first of all, really believe in what it is that you are selling. And selling is, everyone gets, I don't know why people get weird about selling. Nothing happens in life until you sell something, right? So
Yeah.
whether it's the ideal of, selling a particular ideal that you have, whether for the Martin Luther King Memorial is, I believe in freedom and justice, and I want there to be something there to stand for my ideals, or it could be a situation where you're selling a product. But either way, being able to understand and help someone, first you've got to believe in it. Then, so if you don't believe in your product, I can't help you there, right?
Yeah.
So and then being able to sort of understand where the customer or the person on the other side is coming from. What do they really want? What are their desires? So, if you're telling to someone, hey, we'd love for you to purchase this product, just because you think they should purchase this product because of the reason why. So say for instance, it's a dog product, it's a pet product, and you're like, you should purchase this product because it's healthier for your pet. Or maybe the real issue for them is, well, I've just tried everything else and I'm just kind of tired of, I want to save money. You figure out what the reason is why someone wants to purchase or wants to give, and you present them with that opportunity based on what their desires are, not what you think, right?
Yeah.
So I watched people, particularly, I was paired. How this particular process would work is we were paired with citizen volunteers. So they were always CEOs of major corporations in our city, and so that was another thing too. I got a chance to really kind of bond and build relationships with CEOs of large corporations, and so they're on our board and they're on, So then I was paired with them, and we would go in meetings together, and I was like 21 at the time, right? So
Wow. Yeah.
I don't really know. I'm like, when you're 21, all you have is full of confidence. You don't have anything else but confidence.
Yeah.
But I went in because I was eager to learn. And so I really sat back and watched a bit about how they interacted with their peers, the kinds of questions that they asked, the way that the cadence, right? Of when do you pause, when do you stop, when do you go faster, when do you slow down? And
Hmm.
I would just really watched it, and I was like, okay, well, that's clearly a pattern. And you also I was lucky because I was not just with one particular CEO, I was with a couple others. So I was able to see how different styles played themselves out as well. And from there, I just really got really comfortable asking for very large sums of money. And, as time went on, you know,
Tell us that journey. Like I remember as a coach when I first asked a client for $1,000, I'm like, oh geez, I hope he doesn't shut me down. And
I know,
but when you get that first yes, it's like, oh my gosh, this could actually work.
I know. Yeah, no, I think you see the world through the lens, right, of what you've seen. That's why representation really matters, and giving people opportunities to see things other than how they grow up. Because if in your world $100 is a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, so I'm not poo-pooing it, but if that's where the ceiling is for you, then to ask for 1,000 is like, whoa,
Mhm.
if your world is 1,000 is, about where you're comfortable with, then asking for 5,000 or 10,000 is a bit. So, but I think it's important for people to realize that money, money is sort of, it's energy. It's not really the money because it's printed on paper. So it's really more the value. What is the value to the person with whom you're speaking to and what you're offering, and being able to get past the idea of, oh, it's 1,000. It's kind of like, women there's like we have outfits, then all these designers make all these clothes, and they'll say, oh, this is a size 6 and this is a size 10. So you want to feel like, okay, well, I want to wear a size 6 because society says that. But if different designers have different measurements for different sizes, and you feel like, oh wait, I want to wear a size 6, but this actually fits me, and size 8 is better. It's the same thing with money. It's not really a thing. Clothing size is not really a thing. It's more, money really isn't a thing unless you are tied to the number. But if you tie what you're doing to the value to the value, not the value that you hold, but the value that the person you're having the conversation around, it's easier to get past the, oh, I'm asking for $1,000,000 or I'm asking for $100. It becomes a little bit more elastic. So that's why I started with, you have to believe in the thing that you are offering, because if you don't think it's valuable, then there's no way you can form your lips to say, give me $2 million to support this. But if you believe in it, and and if in a product case, if you really believe in what it is that you're offering, and that if that person were to get it, it would really impact their lives. It also takes you out of the selfishness. We're really very self-centered in many ways. And so we're always thinking, oh, they're rejecting me, or oh, I'm going to look like an idiot for opening my mouth to ask for that amount. But if you can put yourself in the posture of, I care about this person that's across the table from me, or really the person better to that you're sitting next to, or whatever, and that their needs would be served by the thing that you are offering, it would be selfish to not offer it, right? It's a different mindset where you're like, oh, I'm going to be scared for asking that amount, or pricing that amount, um or I'm going to be rejected from it. And obviously, if your business is in a SaaS company, so you don't actually see the person, but still the value that you're going to be offering to the customer. So it's easier to ask. And that's really that's how I was able to get past it, was really the idea of sitting down and watching how people would be like, yeah, definitely, we're going to donate this amount of money, and we're going to definitely give an opportunity for our staff to be able to donate. And the more and more I was able to ask for larger and larger amounts, the more I was promoted. And then the more I was, then by the time, I was really comfortable, the memorial came about, and, we had larger amounts to ask for.
Oh, that's so cool. And I'm curious too. So obviously, $120 million is a lot of money, and obviously, so it sounds like, my guess is, if you're in DC, companies they want to find the right organization to give money to anyway. Like, so you're not asking them to pull it, quote unquote, out of their own pocket. Like, this is money that they're going to choose between either your memorial or another project to give money to, right? Is that kind of how that works?
Right, right. So when it comes to charitable giving for corporations, there is a sort of a practice called corporate social responsibility. And so, something to think about when if your audience who's entrepreneurial, they're building their business, they need to be thinking about what their CSR policy is going to be.
Yeah.
You can't just
What's
exist in the
CSR
world.
stand for?
Corporate social responsibility.
Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're building a business, you should have some thought process as you scale and grow as to what do we believe in here at this company, and what causes will we be supporting, and that is sometimes aligned with a product that you sell. It's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes aligned with the types of customers that buy from you. So, for instance, you've got, say, a Talbot's clothing store, right? I don't know if you're familiar with Talbot's. It's primarily geared towards, more middle-aged women, but it's women, and
Yeah.
so they support causes that women are interested, that would be more interested in. I think if you have, like Dove is a really strong prime example. Dove soap, they primarily work on causes that support women's well-being and feeling beautiful and in themselves. Okay, you look at something like there's this great company out there that sells engines, and they support. I know they have this great video YouTube channel, everything, and they support. No, they actually are an insurance company for cars that are like higher, engine, whatever, and
Got
they
it.
do a whole thing around racing and those kinds of things. So most companies will have a CSR component where they are supporting causes in their communities that will represent their customer base, their employee base, or what they are, and so forth. So yes, the answer to answer your question is most companies do give out a large sum of money, and the larger they are, the more they give. And of course, there can be some cynicism. People will be cynical and like, well, they're only giving a little bit compared to, I'm like, okay, fine, yes, that's a different conversation. But the companies that are giving a lot of money out there are making impacts. So to answer your question, yes, if you're doing corporate fundraising, they are taking money out of a bucket that they would normally be giving. However, there's this type of a project, meaning sort of like it's called more like a capital campaign, something that's not a cause that is directly related to like, say, it's a building, it's a structure, it's a memorial. So that's a little bit different than giving to the Dress for Success charity, for instance, right? Because that's a different conversation. So those kinds of fundraising efforts are way more complicated because it's difficult to say, how is a memorial helping?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if it's a different kind of an ask, it's a different kind of a conversation, and it takes way more cultivation of a donor to get that. And I think that's probably the same for businesses that have a product that's a little bit less necessary, right? So of course, if you are selling diapers to parents, that's an easier product to sell than if you were selling some, highfalutin, I don't know, brain activity thing to stimulate children to think in the womb, right? It's a different sell. So it's kind of like the vitamin versus the painkiller kind of a sell. So when you start selling things that are more vitamin-y versus painkillery, you want to be thinking about how you're conversing, how you're talking about it, how you're messaging it. And frankly, I find that those are longer sales cycles.
No, I like that the phrasing of things is, but I'd say with a good sales model, you should be able to turn your product into a painkiller, no matter what product it is. Like it shouldn't just be a vitamin. Like if you're not taking these vitamins, you could you could decrease your lifespan by 10 years or something like that. Uh,
Yeah.
and so that's a good point too, because I think it's a good practice. So as entrepreneurs, so when you're selling the memorial, like you said, like you had to find the why should they donate to the memorial instead of other things. So how did you phrase it in a way that they go, oh, take my money, definitely. Like I feel like if I was a salesperson, I'd go,
Yeah.
every other company in DC is donating to this memorial. If you
Yeah.
don't, you're gonna look bad. But I'm curious what
Well,
your
there was
approach
a little bit
was.
of that kind of conversation, and this was, I mean, obviously, this was an international project, so it wasn't just DC companies, and
Okay.
it wasn't just companies; it was very, wealthy individuals as well
Mm.
as foundations. However, one of the funniest thing was I won't put the name, but there was a healthcare company that gave us it was a pretty good hefty chunk. I think maybe about $500,000, and
Was that the
one of the
biggest
asks
donation?
was,
No.
what was that?
What was the biggest donation out of the 120 million? If you
Oh,
don't mind sharing. Yeah.
10, we had 10 million from GM.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, so this company, you know, truth be told, they had already agreed to give the gift. So that's also to some elements there. There's some agreement there, but they still need to walk through the process. So my team had to fill out the grant request, even though there was some verbal agreements there. But one of the questions were their big. This is an example. Their big cause was they supported children that suffered from spina bifida, which is a very I mean it's a real hard disease for children to experience, and that was their big thing, that they did a lot of work around that and providing and supporting children. So one of the questions that they asked in the grant was, how does building the memorial help and support children with spina bifida? And I mean, I remember thinking, really? So let's bring my fundraising, salesy, skill
Yeah.
set here to play, And one of the things that I said, and it wasn't me being, cheeky or disingenuous. I said, look, Dr. King had this amazing capacity to do things even within the realms of his own challenges, and yet, and so here it is, that if a child who has spina bifida is able to go to the memorial, learn the story, see this, and they're like, well, if Dr. King could do this, I can do it too, right? So it is a way of being able to think about, and I did that, and I said that not being at all disingenuous. I really believed that, and I had my team create that and write that, and obviously we were going to get the gift. I assume anyway, but it was something that was truthful. When you're thinking about your product, you start talking, Andrew, about the idea of vitamin versus painkiller. If you don't believe it, and that goes back, if you don't believe what you're selling, just don't sell it. Because if you can really believe it and see this is how it's going to serve people, you would be surprised at how you can begin to see how it can be, a painkiller, because you believe that to be true.
No, I love that, and I love the passion you bring to, and enthusiasm you bring to have people believe in their products. So what is, I guess we can talk like a logistical and like, I guess, emotional, or just like a spiritual hype
Mhm.
that you would give to someone. If you, what do you tell business owners to help them believe in their products more, I guess, is the question I want to get to.
Well, that there is an internal game, Andrew.
Hmm.
If I get it. Look, a company is created for the purpose of generating value to all the stakeholders, the owners, the investors, the customers, the employees, right? We get that. And there's sort of perceived value, and then there's real value. So that's the purpose of a company. At the same time, though, so I'm not saying that, you if there's a need out there and you have it. I remember there's God, there's a one of those sort of business gurus out there, and I heard him say, you know what business is? Business is going to a customer, going to someone, asking them what they need, going and getting it, and then giving it to them. Right?
I like that.
It's
Yeah.
not that complicated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I recognize that there might be some things that so if you're, so say for instance, you're in the business of, I've noticed a lot of folks will start their entrepreneurial journey by, say, doing um, uh, a vending machine, for instance. Okay. And what do you have in the vending machine? If you're not going to be like one of those fancy vending machines where you're like, selling like, champagne or whatever, they
Yeah, it's
exist
pretty fancy.
apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently they exist. But
Hmm.
like, if you're just going to have like, Cheetos and Doritos and whatever. So you're like, well, how can I believe in my product for the chips? I mean, it's just, everyone can find Cheetos anywhere. Well, the question on the table is, who are you serving? Because oftentimes I know, like, whenever I'm getting something out of a vending machine, it's usually because I'm you're a college kid, and you have your class in the whatever at 7 o'clock at night. You didn't get a chance to eat, and you're gonna, like, you're growling, and you need something to just tide you over for the class until you head back to the dorms or something, right? If there's a vending machine and there's like water in there or soda, you might be, coming from the gym. There's vending machines in the gyms where you can just sort of get your little water bottle and call it a day. Okay, maybe you don't believe in the product, but you believe in the people that you are servicing and giving them some conveniences. That's where I'm saying is, it's an internal game. I can't help you if you don't believe in your product, but at the same time, I can help you begin to think about how you are servicing them in a way that gets you excited about it. And so once you kind of are there, then you kind of think, okay, Now that I know what it is that makes me passionate about, and it could be just the passion of doing business, right? I'm an entrepreneur through and through. I love just doing business. And there are people who just, they don't really care about the product per se, but they love being an entrepreneur. That's what they love. Well, being an entrepreneur is, finding the best way to provide the best product at, whatever the best price is that's basic for your market, and doing it in a way that's efficient and doing it in a way that allows you to scale. And that's exciting. Whatever it is that gets you excited about it, it allows for you to then show up at a higher standard, because that's in the end what you're trying to do. It's showing up at a higher standard in everything that you're doing, whether it's your sales or whether it's how you're leading, how you're being a strategic planner in your business, how you're leading as a CEO, leading your team, selecting well. It's just getting you enough passion that gets you to show up at a higher standard.
I love that. I love that. Just like simplifying what business is, understanding that it's okay to like business for the sake of liking business too. I like that perspective on things. And in your speaker sheet too, or your one sheet, you talk about preventing chaos in businesses.
Uh,
So tell us more. Like, once a business knows what they offer, knows who they serve, why they serve it, they like doing it, but then the chaos comes in. How do you prevent chaos for businesses?
Yeah, I tell you, I often say that sometimes running a business can feel like you're trying to manage this chaotic tornado, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
how do we manage? You've got your cash flow coming here, payroll over here, you've got, inventory. So there's a lot of different things that can come across. Now, the thing about business is that you are really operating, you know, a true leader is a problem solver. There are things that are come at, and then you need to manage that. Okay. And different stages of business present different problems.
Hmm.
And those are normal problems. If you are an early stage, it is all about the cash. It is all about trying to just grow somehow, somewhere. But as you get earlier, you get older, and you begin to grow and get in different stages of your business, there are other problems that are also normal problems. Okay. But then there are abnormal problems. Those problems are the problems that are going to eat you alive, and it's going to bring you down, the business down. One of the main ones, so there's four that I find are sort of, I call them symptoms of chaos, right? Because people are like, oh no, that's the chaos. No, that's the symptom. There's a
Yeah.
bigger issue underlying this. So the four big ones that I have found is cash flow, running out of
Always.
cash, too
Hmm.
much negative cash flow. It's not working, right? And it
Yep.
is, Andrew, you'd be so surprised when people are just like, oh, yeah, I've been having this cash flow problem since I started the business. Really? That is not okay. It is the number one reason why business fails, because they run out of cash.
Yeah.
80% of businesses that fail because they run out of cash.
What
So
business?
if
What other reasons do they fail? Just lawsuits, or like, I feel like if you have cash, it's hard to fail as a business.
well, one of the second ones is that it's a product market fit issue, right? The product, they cannot grow, they cannot scale, because the product might be good for this amount, but it can't go this big. So now you're stuck with a small, you can't grow. So you may have a lot of cash coming in, but you can't grow because you're stuck at a certain level of number of customers that you can sell to, because it was just so small.
Interesting.
And that's the lesson.
Mhm.
The second reason. The third one
Yeah.
is you can't build a team, a very good team. There's something
Mhm.
wrong with your team. Either what I found is that it's really because people started early days. They built a team because it was sort of a hodgepodgey thing, which is fine. Again, that's a normal problem for an early days. But if you're not early in the game beginning to say, okay, looking at this business and figuring out what are the roles that need to actually happen to build this business, who needs to, what type of skill set needs to be in that particular business, what kind of person needs to be in that chair, and hiring them accordingly. In the end, I cannot tell you, I have been brought into business that have been a while, been in for a while. Of course, because you have an employee that's been there for a while. You got loyalty stuff happening. You do not want to let them go, but it is wreaking havoc in the company, causing all kinds of pain and creating toxic environments. That is the third reason why businesses fail, because of a team problem. And the
Mm.
fourth one is burnout. They're wearing way too many hats. They can't walk away from the business without feeling like it's going to implode, and then burnout. That's the fourth reason.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So cash flow, product market fit, team, burnout. So one of the first ways to helping identify and preventing the chaos is recognizing what's holding your team back the most, sounds like.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're feeling like, if those things are popping up and they're persistent, again, okay, fine. You've got a situation where, you can't delegate comfortably, but you figured a way to fix it. That's a normal problem. But if you're persistently unable to get your team to function, if you're consistently having a toxic situation, if you're consistently unable to move things forward, then that's a problem. You need to pay attention to it. So it's persistence. It's how grave is the problem. And
Mm.
okay, maybe you might have missed a bill. Maybe you had to reach out to one of your vendors this month and say, hey, can we push the bill back this month because cash flow is a bit weird. I'm going to have a new shipment in, or a new particular client is going to be coming in. That's a different conversation than every single month you're like on pins and needles and can't hit payroll. So I think it's really important to, like, once you begin to see these things creeping over into problems that are persistent in the business, then one must stop and begin to assess what the underlying problem is, because those again are the symptoms. Because, for instance, you may have a cash flow problem, Andrew, and you think, well, it's a sales problem. Everyone assumes, oh, I need to sell more. Okay, because, well, that's the logical connection. Well, what it might be that the business model that you have built your company on doesn't work, or cannot work for what it is you need it to do right now. So it's more along the lines of saying, I've got this problem. I can assume it might be a sales problem, but what else could it be?
Yeah.
What else could it be? And then you keep asking the question, what else could it be? Until you begin to do some work around, and do one step at a time. You can't do a whole big chunk. If all the things are red, red, just close your eyes and focus on one, because you just can't focus on them all. But in the end, you're trying to get to the core problem and be able to then fix that, not hit it at the top, because you'll spend money and time trying to hit at the top and it actually not be the thing.
No, I love that advice about things. And I'm curious too. So you used myself as an example. What's another client example you've worked with where you're proud of taking them from A to Z, where they're having cash flow problems? Or like, Kerry-Ann, help us. Like, tell us like a case study of one of your favorite
Yeah, no,
clients.
I'm
Yeah.
happy to do that. I love to brag on my clients.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Because you develop a great deal of connection with them. So, I had a client. She's actually, we talked about Spain. Her company is based out of Spain, but she has offices in Latin America, in other parts of Europe, and in the continent of Africa. So
Wow.
there's a gaming company. And so it's regulated, right? Hold on. So I think it's really to think about, like, you can't really, when you have a situation where you have employees in all parts of the world, it's really very common for there to be a disconnect, right? And a situation where you have low morale. So that was one problem. The other problem was they were a regulated company, and so they were having a difficult time during the COVID, during pandemic, around making sure that revenue stayed up, because they had some problems there. And so when she started coming, I mean, I'll never forget this. She was sitting, right after the sort of the stay-at-home order. She was like, Kerry-Ann, I'm going to have to close. Like, it was that serious, and there was tears coming down her eyes. And I mean, there were so many tears during the early stages of it. I mean, I'm sure you probably had a great deal of your friends, and just the tears. And so she's like, I'm going to have to close. And my team, is I don't know how I'm going to be able to break that to them, because she had a number of team members. And I was like, okay, we can sit here and cry about it for a second, and that's perfectly fine. We're gonna do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Let it out.
Like, we're
Let
just
it
let
out.
it out. We're gonna,
Yeah.
and then I was like, so what we're not gonna do is let this thing go down, right? And I think one of the things that we did was first do a full-on strategic plan of the business. Take a look and see, okay, what are the products that are working? Which ones are regulated? Which ones can we not do? Which ones can we do? Which ones are providing the most amount of profit? Okay, and from there, being able to say, okay, fine. Here's this part here where you can't do, so let's not cry over it anymore. It's a done thing, okay? But which ways can you begin to implement into your company? What other products can you add? What other ways can you be able to expand that particular product? Or even were there some needs of some of your customers that you never really paid attention to that now you can, address now? And so I think from there, we began to kind of figure out strategically what that looks like. And then around the team, it was really, I mean, it was a lot of work around building the team, giving them some autonomy, giving them some responsibility, giving them what they needed at the time. I mean, even just, ordering lunch and sending them to her home, sending her lunch to their homes on a regular basis, just to get them realizing that we're all in this together. There's some things that we can do that, and as she worked through this over the year, not only was she able to, not hit huge markers huge revenue markers, she stuck around when many in her industry began to go away. There are businesses that are no longer around in that industry that she still is. Third, she was able to be voted best company to work for. I know, right? She was getting ready to close
What?
that company down, Andrew.
Oh my
Best company to
God.
work for in her industry, in her country. And also, one of the things that she always wanted to do was to be able to have a bonus program where it was based on their performances and based on company performances. And she was able to implement that. And from then on, I cannot tell you, like, it's now she's expanded into 3 other countries. I mean, it's just
Wow.
beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to watch. So I'm saying there's a way to do it. And even when we're at the bottom, you can get it back up.
Well, the fact that yeah, she's a woman in tech too, and dominating the space, like that's awesome. Like, good for her.
Yeah.
And so what about like because it's always the saying too, like the cobbler's kids have no shoes, and I know and so I'm curious, like, so tell us more about really quick the growth of your company and your journey too. Like, do you currently have employees, and tell us more about your how your company's structured.
Yeah, well, I will say it's been really a fun journey. And again, I think if your audience is or anyone in your audience is listening and they're in the stages of growing their business or starting, I think the one lesson I would say around growing a business is recognizing there's various iterations of it.
Hmm.
So I went full time in 2014, and it was primarily focusing on consulting with very large NGOs, which made sense because of my background
Yeah.
and also my connections. Let's just be frank. Um, and and I did that, and I had some really great opportunities and great and business started growing real fast in that iteration. And so I started really bringing on team. But that's when I really was like, well, this version of this business is not exactly what I want. One, because it was very similar to the things that I had been able to do in the business prior when I was, early days. And also because I really found myself inching more towards working with, so I would be working primarily with boards of directors, and developing strategic. Now, strategy is always my thing, so I'm always going to do it, and that's what I do with businesses now. But I really found myself really leaning more towards working directly with the CEOs and really sort of finding out, like, ways that they could strengthen their team, look at sort of the things that are happening in the business as a way to be able to make it work. So anyway, I did that for a bit. But then I was slowly getting into, like, people were beginning to reach out to me, like, hey, Kerry-Ann, got this business that I'm doing, and I know you do strategy, can you do the thing? And I'm like, yeah, come on, whatever. So then I sort of had this mixture of different clients. I'm like,
Yeah.
and then I was like, I realized, no, I prefer this than this. So I pivoted. And that's, I think, the joy of early days of your business, where you can pivot, you can move, you can decide how you want to do it. And then I began realizing that, because at first I was doing a bit more of like the coaching versus, like, so I do more of a mixture of coaching and strategy than strategy. And I realized, yeah, I'm really good at coaching and I can do that. And obviously everything in life is coaching, frankly, to be honest. But at the same time, I really like to work with companies that are building something to last, and they really just want strategy work, and obviously, have a trusted advisor. So that was kind of how I pivoted, and then from there began saying, okay, if that's what I'm going to be building, then what kind of team do I need to build to make that business work, and also how do I make sure that it can scale? Because in the end, I don't, if it's growing and growing, that's great and fantastic, but that just means that it's more expenses and more of me.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like not fun, right? So then, how can I make it scale? How can I do that? And I think in the end was really like, bringing other business strategists to work along and sort of be a bench, and find ways that we can do it. And so it's really, distilling down the actual product, making sure that it is, these are the products that we serve, not all these willy-nilly things, and all, bringing it. So I think that was kind of the growing pains for me, because I remember, because I remember my first big huge client. I was like, yeah, bring it on. And I thought that I had really I thought that I had staffed up well. I thought that I was like, bring it on.
Yeah. You're ready. Yeah.
Oh my God, Andrew, such a huge failure. I mean, by the end, it was like it was a 1 year engagement. And literally by the time I'm sitting in the end, nobody likes to have a come to Jesus meeting when you're the one being come to Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was that moment when I was just like, I'm never going to be sitting here again. But it did help me realize that I needed to change the business model, the way I was doing it. I
Yeah.
did know that's one of the problems with scaling as you grow. One of the biggest things is just scaling too fast. And I realized that I had scaled too fast in that case, and I just couldn't fulfill the client. I just couldn't
Mm.
fulfill. And
Did you have
so,
to give a refund, or how does that work when you're working with a big
yeah,
corporation like
well,
that?
so the way the contract was structured, um, I was able to fulfill the basics of the contract. So it wasn't like,
Okay.
it wasn't like awful. So I was
Yeah.
able to fulfill the basics of the contract, but the things that there was some, I think that she was like maybe over promising on some level. And so the things that we thought we were going to be able to, so there was like a sort of a commission based element to it as well. So I think so that didn't play out well. But when you start talking to a client, it's not just about did you deliver. It's also your reputation. It's
Yeah.
also the disappointment to the client who was really, who had to go to bat
Get you.
to
Yeah.
convince his partners to do it. So it's very much more of just that. So again, look, this happens a lot. You scale, you scale too fast, and then you can't deliver. And that's one of the things that I always teach is like, okay, scaling growth is really important, but there are some fundamental things that need to happen in the business before you can take on the big clients, right? So
Yeah.
like, for instance, one of my clients right now, or actually we were actually discussing being a client, but she has this great like pet food thing. It's just awesome. Like the product is fantastic. It's one of the major retailers out there, which you would know, is thinking about wants to bring the product in house and wants to bring the product to sell it in their stores. And so, obviously it's a great product. People are buying it direct from the company. And so, yeah, it would really do well. And the branding is very much similar to how the style of that particular retailer is. So it was just sort of like a no-brainer, but based on face value. But then, she came to me and she's like, I'm a bit concerned. Can we take a look at this? You begin to start seeing, well, she has 4 suppliers, one based in China, another one based in another part of the country, and then 2 local. The timeline for getting the products to where she needs to be to have the person who assembles it put it together, and then plus how much money she would need to be upfronting, okay, to be able to
Mhm.
get the full products and then get them to the retailer. It was almost a nightmare. It would have been a nightmare had she, signed a contract at that time. Now there's some
Yeah.
ways to fix it, right? Bring some of the products from China over here, maybe purchase more products from China and then have them stored in a storehouse in the US. But then that means upfront costs. Do you have the cushion in your business to do that? Okay. If you don't have the cushion to do that in your business, then it's a huge risk, which
Yeah.
again might be a risk that you're willing to take. You just need to assess it and know that that risk exists.
Yeah.
So that's where the conversation is like, yeah, you think, oh, I'm gonna have a great big client, I'm so excited, it's gonna be a lot of cash and it's a great opportunity. But in the end, can your company handle more of the fulfillment, more of the products that you're going to need to bring in, the cash flow to make this a really good opportunity? And you don't want to have a conversation like my come to Jesus conversation.
Yeah, no, well, and it's good that I mean, they say failure is the best teacher, and so it's like, and sometimes it takes being there to know, okay, now I know not to do this again. And
Not
so,
doing that. Yeah, you're absolutely
yeah,
right, Andrew.
and the fact that you're still able to stay in business after that, like it's good that you didn't get bankrupted and tarnished and
Yeah.
dragged through the
Yeah.
mud because of that. And like you said, you
Yeah.
still delivered, but obviously was it we wanted to, but the fact that you still did your part where you could. So
Yeah.
but I think it's a good learning lesson. And
I think too,
yeah,
Andrew, you need to, like, you know, in particularly early days, we connect our worth very much to our businesses.
yeah, true.
And that would be one lesson that I think I had to kind of come back away from, is recognizing that my business is an entity outside of myself.
Hmm.
And I felt a lot of, I'll be frank, I felt a lot of shame when that happened, because I'm a high achiever and I spent a lot of my life connecting to my high achievements. And when that kind of didn't happen, I was just like, "Ooh." Like, can I really build a business that's gonna last? Maybe I'm like a one-hit wonder. I don't know. And so I think it's important to, it's very difficult, but it's important to disconnect and recognize that some of your biggest heroes in business have done have made some huge flops,
Yeah.
big
Hmm.
failures. And so don't carry that shame around. Use it to learn, use it to say, okay, this is what we need to be put into the business to make it work so that doesn't happen again. But not carrying the shame or the feelings of somehow I'm not cut out for this, or who was I to go for that big contract, blah blah blah. Yeah, you needed to go for that big contract so you could learn.
Yeah. No, I love. So, yeah. So tell us more. Like, how did you learn how to disassociate your self worth from your business? Because I agree, it's a lot of people tie their lives to their business, and like they think they have to go hand in hand. And I guess sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So tell us more how you were able to, I guess,
It
sit
was
sit with
really
that.
big because I found myself not not pitching anymore, right? Or
Mhm.
pitching small. Um, and I lost my confidence. I lost my footing a
And this
bit.
was, you said, year 2 or year 3 of your business since
Yeah, it was year
2014.
2. It was year
So
2.
in 2016, 2 years after your business.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so yeah, it was. I definitely felt. But then when you start looking at the numbers, I had to have my own come to Jesus conversation, and looked in the mirror and said, so what then? We're just gonna do this hobby then? Like,
Yeah.
when you back up, you say, do you want to do this or not? Is that your plan or not? And I had to say, okay, yes, I'm in it. So then what does that mean to be in it? What does it really mean? It means I have to get past this feeling of shame and guilt and I'm not good enough, or I'm never going to scale. I'm going to always be small potatoes, or whatever the feelings that were going on there. And then, pick myself up a bit and keep moving, because entrepreneurship is a bit of a lonely game, Andrew. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can have friends who are entrepreneurs, and they, you can kind of pitch and catch and be like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. But when you're in it, it's you. And
Well, it's what people sign up for. I think the classic joke is you work 80 hours a week for yourself so that you don't have to work 40 hours a week for someone else. It's,
yeah, well,
yeah.
I think, it's the journey of it, because there's a tipping point. You're doing the things, and you're doing the right things, to the point where at some point the magic happens, and you've built a business that doesn't require you to be in it.
Mm-hmm.
But early days, you are in it, and it's difficult to, you're facing your demons, really. At some point, you're facing the dark places of the soul, as they say, that says, okay, am I in this? Do I really am going to do this, or am I not?
Yeah.
And so, but when you finally decide I'm in it, you get you say, okay, what will I have to do to be able to do this? And that would require you to disconnect. I'm not saying that I'm completely a robot, I'm just doing it, but I think I begin to see myself a bit more. It goes back to the selfishness. I was really looking at myself, that self-centeredness. I was looking at myself as my business, whereas I am the caretaker of an entity that creates value for my customers.
Yeah.
So I might do a thing. I might try a new tech tactic in the business, and it's just not gonna work. It didn't work. I'll try that, and that's fine. I don't have any emotional attachment to it. We tried it, we did it, doesn't work. Okay, move on. Right?
Yeah.
Because your team doesn't have time for you to be sitting here all navel gazing and problem solving, like just looking at things. You got to just decide and move on, decide and move on, decide. And when you have this feeling of it's my baby, then it's difficult to decide. Decision, if you're lagging around in decision, like if making a decision in your business takes a long time, you're looking at the wrong thing. It's you're being a bit self-centered, probably.
Yeah. No, I like what you said too. Like the kind of another way to say it, like the point of no return. Just like deciding, like, no, I'm not letting things hold me back anymore, and I'm making this work because your services are valuable. They help people, and you believe in yourself. You believe in what you have to offer. And so failure is not an option. And so, of course,
Yeah.
you might have to pivot. You
Burn
might
the
have to
boats.
adjust. Yeah. Burn the boats. Yes, exactly. And so it's a good friendly reminder out there for those listening. Just like keep going. Like it has to work out. You'll make it work. There's people there to support you. I know you said entrepreneurship is lonely, but it goes back to, like it's true. But there's also other groups who feel the same way. And so just like I'm sure being an alcoholic can feel lonely too, but that's what Alcoholics Anonymous is for.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Entrepreneurs Anonymous. So I definitely get you there. Well, I know we've been talking for a while, so I want to wrap up with a few more questions here. Yeah, so tell us more, since I think this is kind of ties in quickly. What are the non-negotiable actions to be successful as an entrepreneur, in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a good question, Andrew. And it's kind of interesting how that has evolved for me as I have done the work and worked with many, many, many different types of businesses. Um, One thing is, there are a lot of things that you can delegate in your business. But one of the things you cannot delegate is you're the strategic leader of your business. So being the visionary means understanding where you want to take this business early. I love to sort of like 20 years out. What is that? What does the vision look like? And you're the person who needs to cast that vision for yourself. If it's just you and you and your dog or the employees, or if it's you and you've got a team of 50 or you've got a team of whatever, It is you. No one else can be that vision caster but you, and the leader of strategy but you. You also have the full on responsibility of making sure that this company, this entity outside of yourself, which is designed to create value for all of its stakeholders, can generate the resources that it's supposed to reap. Period and done. There are lots of things that a leader must do in a business. One of which is making sure that you are either creating the environment, providing the tools, bringing in the people that are supposed to be there to help you build it, hiring the right people, casting the vision, being a good leader. Those are the things that you must do in order to make sure that the entity that we are calling your business is generating the revenue that it needs to generate, and whatever the other value is. So those are two things that are non-negotiable. You can decide if you want to be, what type of leader you want to be. That's fine. Your style, everyone has a different style of leadership. It actually shows, I think it was some study that I read, that flamboyant leaders that we always think about as sort of being like, the celebrity CEOs, they're actually not the ones that actually make things work. Like, they're not actually the ones that have the most successful companies. So whatever style, if you're an introvert and you're a leader that has a different style, it doesn't really matter your style. Then what matters is making sure that however it is you're getting to being the vision caster, being the strategic driver in the business, making sure that you are responsible for making sure that the revenue is coming in, whatever that looks like. Those are things that you cannot miss. So when you think about your time in the business, when you think about your time, what you're spending your time doing, if it's not those two things, if you're not spending most of your time doing those two things, then I don't know what to tell you, because you're not going to get where you want to get there.
No, I love it. And that was so well said. And for those listening, Kerry-Ann's also a speaker, in case you didn't know. So definitely bring out her speaker knowledge and just overall knowledge, and so many golden nuggets of wisdom. It's been so incredible. So as we get to the end of the interview here, so tell us, Kerry-Ann, you mentioned you wanted to promote a one sheet to the audience.
Yeah, well, if one of your audience members are listening and they're like, oh my gosh, she's stepping on my toes, I'm feeling the chaos there, then I created a PDF that I just sort of brain dumped the things that I have found to be the true causes of chaos in businesses. And so I found that there's eight true causes that are causing chaos, and it's primarily around small and medium-sized businesses. So the eight true culprits that are causing chaos in your business. And it provides you an opportunity to sort of take a look and see, wait a minute, oh, that's the thing that's causing this chaos. And there are some ways in which you can address it and fix it. So if that's you, and if you feel as if that, that would be helpful for you, it's just my wisdom being put in a book based on my experience. So they can find it at nobusinesschaos.com. So nobusinesschaos.com.
Oh, great. Very easy URL. I love it. I'll make sure to put that. Oh, nobusinesschaos.com.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did I spell it correctly? NOBUSINESS chaos.com.
Yes. Is it not showing up?
No, it's not showing up. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can put the link in the
yeah, I'll put it in the
chat,
link in the bottom in the
Okay. Yeah, I want to make sure it gets put in the show notes properly.
Oh, I just pulled it up here. Oh, maybe put www.nobusinesschaos.com.
Oh, nobusinesschaos.com. Oh, that's weird. The www makes a difference. Okay. All right.
Oh, okay.
All right. I learn something new all the time. Perfect.
Well, I'll put it in the link in our conversation. But yeah.
Yes. Okay, that's good to know. All right. Well, yeah. So final question, final two questions. Kerry-Ann, how can we best contact you and get a hold of you? Anything else outside of this website?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a real person. I love connecting.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
I love connecting with other entrepreneurs or people. So, find me on LinkedIn, give me a DM and say hi. I'd really love to connect that way. Obviously, I'm on other social media places at Kerry-Ann Powell or Kerry-Ann T. Powell. But you can also find us on my website at trafalgarstrategies.co.
Perfect. And then the final question of the day is, for people listening to this interview, what's the one takeaway you want them to have from what we talked about today?
You can build a business, it can thrive, and it doesn't have to feel like you're managing a tornado. There are some normal problems, and then there's some abnormal problems. Don't be an ostrich and put your head in the ground and ignoring the abnormal problems. Address them. That's business, but address them.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, what a great pep talk. Well, this has been so wonderful, Kerry-Ann. Thank you so much for coming on today. Definitely check out her website, www.nobusinesschaos.com, and find her on socials. And look forward to hosting you all next week for the next episode of Rapid Results with Andrew Weiss. And we'll see you all soon. Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Andrew. Bye bye.